Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to my new video on Resto Sham in the DragonFlight beta. Thanks to everyone who subbed or liked the videos so far. As always, if you have any comments or tips and tricks, questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. But today we're going to look at Mythic Plus again. I know there's been quite a bit of tuning done to Resto Shams lately on the DPS side of things mainly. So I wanted to address them, how they feel, or at least how I felt they've improved us in Mythic Plus in the beta. So firstly, there's been changes before to our chain lightning damage that's increased. Our acid rain damage is increased. Lightning bolt damage is increased. But these are specifically around lava burst and flame shock. So they're welcome buffs. I think before you almost took flame shock and lava burst off your key bindings, to be honest with you, and because they weren't hitting hard enough. But now I think you can certainly put them back in. In terms of DPS overall, I definitely think this makes us more competitive in keys. But the question still persists, how often can you actually press these buttons like chain lightning and healing rain to get acid rain, things like this? We are an active, caster in terms of DPS and healing as opposed to some other healers, which is more passive. And I think this is the key question we have in Mythic Plus, certainly in high keys. So I would still like to see more passive DPS to offset the amount of casting we need to do to be able to be competitive. But these improvements, don't get me wrong, they are still, welcome. So we did actually get a healing buff to downpour as well, and this is welcome, and it definitely makes downpour more viable in keys. It's pretty much like a mini chain heal, and it's very mana efficient, so it's more mana efficient than chain heal as well. So I recommend picking this up for only 1 point. Especially if you're playing a melee heavy comp, which I was, and I think is possibly going to be fairly meta in Dragonflight, then you get a lot of value out of this. Whether or not it's for the healing itself or if you store it into Cloud Burst, if you're in an Ascendance window, this will do a lot of healing for you as well, and it comes in clutch. So I'm going to touch upon this a bit more soon, but yeah, definitely a talent worth picking up. So the main problems we're going to have, again, it's still difficult maintaining DPS when you have to cast heals so often. Healing Surge, maybe even Chain Heal, but Healing Wave, things like this. But if you can cast your DPS, you will pump, especially on single target. I've been speaking to a lot of Resto Sham healers and communities, even other healers and things like that in the beta. And I don't think we're far away from being one of the better single target DPS healers. But the problem is, do you ever actually get a chance to show that? Do you get a chance to cast that DPS? Or are you pressing too many globals on healing? Well, I think the answer is yes and no to that. So I don't think anyone is surprised that by the recent HP buff at endgame and the damage buff that Trash gets as well at endgame, that all healers will rely more on their tank and DPS to not take unnecessary damage. This is especially apparent though for Resto Sham. So if we can just pump Chain Lightning on AoE with Stormkeeper, pump Lava Burst, and Lightning Bolt on single target, then I think we are actually generally pretty strong if our DPS and tank can handle themselves, but realistically, especially in a pug, you're going to need to heal mistakes. Of course, mechanics you'll need to heal as well. So how do we fare with that in mind? Well, I think we're more middle of the pack than we were, let's say, but we still would really benefit from having more passive DPS. So this brings me on to the next topic, which is a new build I've been playing with. I'm getting a lot of joy from it, and it's very fun, in all honesty. It's definitely different to what I've made videos about before. It's less reliant on any chain heal or high tide or anything like that. But it does supply a lot of burst healing and burst DPS when needed in keys. It just makes you more valuable to bring. So this is the build. The first change to the build is bringing back Primordial Wave, which is essentially like a cheaper chain heal every 45 seconds. I did remove a point from High Tide, so replacing that AoE healing was necessary. And I think, I personally don't really like playing Primordial Wave, but if you use Nature's Swiftness every minute when it's on cooldown for that healing wave to proc Primordial Wave, it does make it feel a little bit more fun. And I think, at the moment, having more instant cast AoE healing is really beneficial, especially for us considering we want to spend more globals on DPS, as mentioned before. So I think this gives you that AoE healing that you need. very efficiently and very quickly every 45 seconds or every minute when you're using nature's swiftness for the healing wave. So it's worth taking. It's only 1 point. If you've got cloudburst down as well, you can use that for extra healing afterwards. So it does also encourage you to Riptide all the time. And this then will benefit into Undercurrent, which is something else I'm playing to make my healing more effective by how many Riptides I have out. I think the synergy of that is pretty nice because more Riptides out, the more you're set up for your Primordial Wave AoE healing when you need it anyway. So you get the benefit of that and you get the benefit of doing more healing. Now, I am playing Downpour, as I mentioned earlier. It does a lot more healing than it used to with the buff, especially with melee heavy comps. So I think for 1 point, this is definitely a viable option. It would be nice if this synergized more with our toolkit, i.e. it procced or triggered Vigor. That would be really nice, or work with Tidal Wave, something like that. However, as raw healing throughput goes on a relatively short cooldown, I think this is worth picking up. It does a lot. If you've got an Ascendance window up as well, then it does even more healing into Cloudburst, etc., etc. So yeah, it's a nice talent to take. So I am still playing Earthen Wall Totem. I personally like playing it, but this was almost a spare point. You can put this into another point into Vigor, for example, or somewhere else. But personally, I like playing Earthen Wall. It does a pretty good amount of healing overall as well. And then, of course, playing Stormkeeper for that burst damage. Chain Lightning does a lot of damage at the moment, so having it do more is great. Playing Call of Thunder to buff it, etc., etc. This is nice synergy with our DPS, and it's pretty necessary, I'd say, to pump DPS, considering we have to cast that DPS, and we have to not heal in order to do it. So I think you need to buff your damage as much as possible. You will also notice I'm not playing Healing Rain, so no Acid Rain. I kind of wanted to save the global here, to be honest. I don't think Acid Rain is worth taking, especially in a pug where your tank keeps moving people out of that Healing Rain and all that. You can spend these points better, I think, in the tree. Overall, the damage isn't bad on Acid Rain, but for me, just spamming Chain Lightning just made the whole thing simpler. It meant that I didn't have to focus too much on laying it down and then not getting any value out of it because people move out of it or mechanics make us move out of it. So I think all in all, perhaps saving the points here is a good idea, but let me know what you think on that. So I am also taking Water Shield with Resurgence. I think this is really nice in high keys for mana consumption. I have made the build more mana efficient anyway, so this is an added bonus. I've not had any mana problems at all, even in long fights. With the 40% increase in HP, you're going to heal more often as well. You're going to be spending more mana in general to keep people alive. So I think balancing that with some sort of mana talent is worth taking. And I don't think we're going to have many mana issues, in all honesty. I know that like Mistweaver monks are having mana issues at the moment that's keeping them perhaps from, scaling up the tier list, if you will. But we can offset a lot of our mana problems just with Resurgence. So I think that's nice. So probably the biggest difference in this build then is I'm playing Deeply Rooted Elements, which I know is probably not ideal when you need to control healing in high keys. And this is, obviously quite RNG based, but it's a lot of fun to play. That's why I did it, to test it out. And on the class side of the tree, I am playing Extended Cloudburst Totem and Reduced Cooldowns on the totem. So the chances I have Cloudburst Totem out when this procs, if it procs when I don't need it, is higher to store that healing. But also, of course, it synergizes with Undercurrent. So you're encouraged by having a Primordial Wave build, you're encouraged to keep Riptide up as much as possible to get the effectiveness of that Undercurrent healing as well, but also to then have a higher chance of proccing Deeply Rooted Elements. So the synergy is quite nice, actually. And I found that it did actually proc when I needed it quite often in boss fights or something like that. And if it does, and you can smash out a downpour, something like that, you're going to top everyone really nicely. If you've stored that into Cloudburst, pop that and you'll top people nicely as well. So it gives you that instant burst healing that you need to then, again, spend more globals on DPSing, which we do really need to do. So I think overall, it's just very fun to play. Whether or not it makes it into high key builds, I don't know. But yeah, really fun to play. And then on the class tree side of things, I am picking up Elemental Orbit so I can have Earth Shield and Water Shield on myself, as well as Earth Shield on the tank. Earth Shield actually does quite a lot of your overall healing, so this is probably worth picking up. Again, it's passive healing, right? So it allows you to spend more globals and DPS. So it's pretty good. And then, as I mentioned before, because I'm playing deeply rooted elements, I want to make sure that I have Cloudburst available and down as much as possible, just in case it procs. So I am buffing the totems a bit with obviously the shorter cooldowns and with Totemic Focus for Cloudburst totem uptime. And then I'm also getting Surging Shields as well to buff that Earth Shield and Water Shield effect that I'll have on myself as well. So for pretty much all the same reasons, less time healing, more time DPSing. Now, I think one point of note is that with the recent buffs to Flame Shock and Lava Burst, you actually get more value, I think, now out of Focused Insight. I think before you took this to get Gusts of Wind, which was fine, but it's actually a lot better now itself, since Flame Shock and Lava Burst are actually worth pressing now where they kind of weren't before. So obviously you get the benefit of 15% on a heal after casting Flame Shock, and you get the mana reduction as well. This also synergizes nicely if you did want to play Master of Elements on the other side of the tree to get that 10% increase in damage or healing after casting Lava Burst, which you'll do more often, especially on single target now. So you could pick up both of those talents as well, and I think they're going to synergize a lot better than they did before. So in terms of the damage breakdown from an Algathar's Academy 15 one I did, this is with a damage pot, but 18k overall. It's not too bad. It's more competitive. It's still not the best. And this is because obviously I had more globals to do damage with this build. And in terms of the HPS breakdown, I mainly am showing you this to show you where Downpour and Earth Shield, for example, sit in the mix, and where Riptide does, things like that. You will notice that there is 2 trinkets in here that make up a lot of healing as well. That's because we still do have a healing problem, right? So Brood Keepers is the first trinket. It's a bit of a set and forget on your tank. It just does a load of healing on the tank. A load of overhealing too, don't get me wrong. But, it's basically like having a constant Riptide up on the tank. Now, the other one, the main one, is Expel Light, which comes from Moat. And this is a very strong healing trinket. I don't think I would usually recommend playing a healing trinket in dungeons rather than a stat trinket, but this seems to be very strong. And it comes in clutch for us, Resto Sham, specifically because it acts like a band-aid for where we have, the biggest problems. Let's say you've run out of being able to use your Healing Tide Totem, or you've used Link, you've used Ascendance, things like this. You've done your Primordial Burst, AoE healing. You've got nothing left, but a lot of AoE damage comes in. This is a 1.5 minute cooldown, instant cast, top the whole group trinket. So it really does paper over the cracks, I think, of where Resto Sham's got its biggest problems. Instead of casting millions of healing surges to get everybody back up, you can just pop that. So it's not ideal. To have that and need that, but it does, as I say, act like a band-aid for us there. But that's also why it makes up so much of the healing, I think, in the overall breakdown. Okay, so that's pretty much all I wanted to cover today with this new build and just some of the buffs and stuff that we've had to our damage and downpour. But again, overall, I like playing Resto Sham personally. I'm going to play it. I think it's manageable. Yeah, we're middle of the pack. There are better healers like Preservation Evokers, Resto Druids that do more passive damage and passive healing. Therefore, they overall contribute more, as well as some of the things they bring to the group. But I think Resto Sham's fine to play. KSM, things like this are going to be fine to get. I think even higher keys will be manageable, but you just need more organization in your group. A melee heavy comp, for example, to get the most out of downpour, things like this. Gameplay wise, I enjoy playing it the way it is. I think if you know how to play Resto Sham better than any other healer, just play it, continue to play it, and see you get on. There's loads of tuning going on every week at the moment. So maybe we get more HPS buffs as we go. Maybe we get more passive damage, something like that. But it is only a couple of weeks now until DragonFlight comes out. So I don't really know if there'll be any massive changes, maybe just numbers. But we could do with those HPS numbers to increase. So yeah, other than that, guys, thanks for watching. I do appreciate it. Any comments and stuff, leave them down below. Otherwise, I will catch you in the next one.
Long ago, members of the Blue Dragonflight accidentally overloaded an arcane elemental. and created a powerful construct named Veximus that quickly started to wreak havoc. The blue dragons battled Veximus fiercely, attempting to prevent it from absorbing stray arcane orbs that could allow it to grow further out of control. Veximus began manifesting powerful arcane bombs in order to drive back the dragons.
That item is still recharging.
As the dragons neared victory, Veximus unleashed its full arcane power against them.
The elements answer to me!
Though Veximus tried its best to defeat the dragons, it was ultimately destroyed. Well done!
The elements answer to me! Marked by lightning!
It is not ready yet.
Greetings, Lee. Who are you? You are not registered here. This room is only for students. Head to the registrar. These are sacred halls of learning. Only those registered may access them. Think about what you have